How do we begin? Analyzing song intros, and today we are going to be looking at I Care Because You Do by Aphex Twin. And right now we're in the middle of the first track. Let us just hop right in, shall we? And get it right back to the beginning here. Accurate, avid, jam shred. It's a tongue twister. Okay, the drums ramp up, kind of two layers of drums here. And then kind of just that drone. So I think we're gonna have to make a call here. Those are the chords, like for sure. We might have a label issue right out of the gate here, because honestly that drone, it's not like super atmospheric necessarily, but let's be real. It's not a bass. It's not chords because the chords come in later. It's not a melody. Melody comes in later. Certainly, I don't think a voice, although knowing Richard, perhaps it could be. But I think what I like here, we actually maybe do have to think about, does this song have an independent bass? I'd say even if it doesn't, oh yeah, there we go. I think that, well, yeah, it does. It does later on, because the kick drum's actually a little tonal here. You could almost argue that is operating as a bass to some extent. But I like how the kick and snare come in, and then the hi-hats come in. It gives us some building right within that first 10 seconds. So I'm gonna say like, I'm typing Spotify. Off to a great start, fellas. Kick and snare first, then hi-hat, one droney note. I like that, and it's a cool start to the album. Starts it off on a pretty chill note, and then we move ahead to the wax and pith. Okay. So right here, it is a little bit atmospheric just because of the reverb on the snare hit that happens, but we start off with strictly drums. The chords come in. And then do we want to decide, is that little string part, is that going to be the bass, do we think? Just looking at context here. Do any other bass lines come in? Not really, that pretty much is the bass line. So drums alone, and chords, and I'm gonna put bass in parentheses. Oh, I put ass, no. Bass in quotations. It's just the mono, low, like cello line, whatever. Something like that. Alright, we're back. I'm gonna add bass there because I hadn't put it. And we're gonna move on to wax the nip. Pardon my language. Okay, we're past 10 seconds. Let's get these notes reeled in a little bit. I want to be able to see them. Still can't see them. Oh well, oh well. Can make this one a little smaller. Getting the full context here. It's really... You got a really quiet like chord at the beginning, but like in an atmospheric way. Don't want to confuse things. Just talked over it. How do you like that? Kind of again, a second layer of drums comes in. I put drums in atmospheric already, like really light atmos. Layer 1 drums, then layer 2, and then Basically, then the chords come in. And they're not really chords, but it's, I don't know, the foundation. There are the actual chords. Maybe that's the melody that comes in before the chords. Dude. Yeah, probably. But that is all much later. And, you know, maybe we will end up looking at some fuller strong structures. I actually think we are laying a pretty good foundation here where maybe we can transform this, you know, maybe this is one song and we look at drums, bass, chords, whatever throughout the whole track. Definitely some room for that. So stay tuned. But for right now, we're going for Ichthedral. That filter on the drums is just gnarly. And really just the chords. Again, reverb setting the atmospheric mood, but not a strict standalone atmospheric element here. It is just the drums and the chords, which we'll look back later, but that feels pretty unusual maybe for the Aphex songs we've looked at so far. Hello. That's atmospheric. That's right, we moved on to Ventolin already. Yeah, we actually do have some chords there. Bass comes in. I think it's worth saying that in this song, to me, the drums are the melody, and that, oh man, it's a cool thing when that happens, and it's pretty rare. The only other people that I feel like do that are System of a Down, so there's a random crossover between Aphex Twin and System of a Down, but like the drum beat is what gets stuck in my head when I get this song stuck in my head. Obviously we have some beautiful atmospherics there, with the high pitch buzz. And then, yeah, some gnarly drums and little chord stabs. Oop. So, I think the chord stabs are probably the part that you maybe forget about there. Like, you remember, obviously, the classic Ventolin screech. The drums, obviously, are what gets stuck in your head. But those sparse chord stabs, they are there. And then classic Ventolin screech. Anyway, pretty good. These feel like they're fuller in like not in like a good or bad way, but like I'm putting more boxes here where previously it felt like it was two. It started with two things. It didn't start with three things. So far, every single one of these except for one has started with three things. So just something to keep in mind as we move forward. We're getting to be halfway here. Come On You Slags is next. Okay, I'm just going to stop it right there because we have ourselves a situation. That first sound is the voice sample, but really? Are we really going to say that that's voice? When I put voice there, it was for the intent of talking. To some extent, that's more of an atmospheric in my eyes. It's operating as an atmospheric. It's not someone talking to you. It's setting a tone. The other question, I have two questions for you, and I haven't written anything down yet. Do we want to say that this is the chords or the melody? I'm going to maybe think about that, ponder it. There's voice, that's truly voice, but we're past 10 seconds. Just trying to get the context here. Having myself some green tea to really try to lock in on what we're hearing. I honestly, I'm at a loss here. I think I'm gonna go with chords and atmospherics, just for the voice sample has not revealed itself to be a voice yet to you. If this is your first time hearing a song, you're like, ooh, that's such a weird mood. You're not like, oh, what is that guy saying? You know what? Fuck it. Melody. Because that part, I don't know. That's not something that other things end up playing over the top of in the song, but there are string chords that go behind it. So it is a top layer, not a foundational layer. Late call, but we're gonna rock it. The blue and yellow buttons are pressed for Come On You Slags. What we do want to say though, Atmos is just the vocal sample stretched beyond recognition, baby. Sweet. Okay, start as you mean to go on. Well, we already did that, but now we're going to listen to it. I pressed the wrong button. There we go. Man, this one too, man. This drum can get stuck in your head. Nice reverb chords. Well, not really chords, but is that the bass layer? I think that's definitely not a melody. To be honest, again, this is another one where I feel like the drums are operating as the melody, even though those are kind of just single note sine waves with tons of reverb. It's the tons of reverb that give them more of that foundational, hey, I'm taking up a shitload of space, play something over me, rather than being the melody that says, hi, I am the main focus. So I am gonna, after all this time, how many videos in are we? Maybe we just need a better word for chords there. Feel free to recommend one if you haven't already. But yeah, maybe we rethink that for the future. But then again, you don't want to get it mixed up with atmospherics too, because it's like this is like the base layer bed, but that's like the sheets. What is he talking about? So let's go back. Let's get this. Let's steer the ship back on target. Do we need notes for this one? What do you think? Not really. It's pretty straightforward. I'm just gonna say chords are just notes with lots of reverb. Chords are just notes, so, you know, not wrong technically. Wet tip hen axe. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So again, we're gonna need more context here, and really, you know, when you're thinking about the intro and you're like, hey, I want to make an intro, what do I do? What do I start with? You see that most of the time the intro is just a stripped down version of some later section of the song. Like, obviously, I'd say the one exception is when there is that kind of just atmospheric element that's dropped in just for, you know, it's not a musical element. It just kind of the song opens or closes with it. Maybe both. Maybe it comes into a breakdown at some point. So what I just want to see is, how is this functioning? We got the kick drum. In fact, we will note that the drums are just the kick drum. But how are these other notes functioning throughout the song? They're kind of the melody. I'm going to say that it's the melody. There kind of ends up being like two of them, kind of a counterpoint melody situation that comes in. And then there are more strings and such that go behind it. So we'll say that. We'll say the drums just kick and layer. I like that. No E. Layer one of counterpoint melody. Sure. Very technical. Moo Kid. Let's hit it. Okay, 10 seconds right there. This is another one. Again, I like this. We're doing a lot of breaking the drums into two. So let's just hear the drums again. 10 seconds to just listen to the drums. Sorry. Okay, now context. Well, let's finish the drum thought. So drums, just kick and snare again. Really small, just kick and snare. And there's a second layer of kick snare that is like more of a sample, maybe like a break type of sample. Thickens it up a bit, but we're seeing this like two layers. So a drum comes in that's small, and then it gets bigger on, you know, the second half of the first 10 seconds. Then I almost feel like we might have the melody and the chords here. I'm gonna say yeah, like that. Those are used differently later on. It changes and evolves, but you have both the melody and the chords right in that first little part. So again, we're starting with three things. Very, very different, this album, to the predecessors. Okay, so we got the little probably voice sample again to start it off with. I think is voice sample again, but it's just some silly sounds to set the mood to. Do we want to say that? I think we're gonna say that it's the bass, really. You could say it's just outlining the chord progression too, and that actually might be more true. Of course, the bass is going to outline the chord progression as well, but it's like, is it the arpeggiated chord progression in a low tone, or is it the bass? Let's say it's the chords. I don't know that there truly is a bass, at least to this point. Let's just check. Refresh my memory. They're kind of together. There's two different instruments there. Are they both? Yeah, it's like a single note bass line. So to be honest, this is kind of it. Single note bass line follows ARP chords. They're not even really ARP chords, but this is hilarious. This makes it look like there's so much going on, but it's just the essence of the things. And that's like kind of a lesson in itself, right? Like, you don't need to have everything going full blast. It's just a touch, the smallest touch of each element. The atmospheric, so you could miss it, right? Before even paying attention, you're like, oh yeah, what's up, fellas? Hey, you know, how you doing? Hey. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, guess what? I love this song that just started at 6 seconds in. But no, before that, he was saying, hey, yeah. And then there was like a second of silence. You missed all that. Anyway, that's just part of what makes Alberto Balsam great. Let's move on to Cowcut is a Twin. A lot of anagrams. One more. Okay. So what's cool about this one is that in a way it's all atmospherics. I mean, not, you could argue that, but that's not what we're going to put, because very clearly there is a voice, there's a laugh, you have the drums, but it's like they're playing on speakers. It's like he starts playing the song on speakers and you're listening to it in his room. You can even hear like the click of something being put on like a desk or something. I don't know if my mic's going to pick it up, but like one of those right about there. 12 seconds. There's even a little shuffle. It's like a shuffle of a paper and then a little, I don't know. And then obviously the big slams. But yeah, I would say basically just drum and voice. Technically sort of atmospherics, especially compared to the rest of the song. This is like the atmospheric version of it. I just realized I didn't name my my sheet here. That's okay. But yeah, we're letting it play out for a second just for context, but I think we're pretty locked in. I care because you do. Bang, now we get to hear it. And we move on to next heap with The Last. Pretty much just the chords. If there's a bass layer in there, which there kind of is. Where was it? Yeah, it has it. So there is, I'm not going to put bass on this one, but there is a bass layer to the chords, and it's playing the bass layer here the same way it is later. So it's not even necessarily a stripped down version of the chords, like this is the chords. Full, type it in Spotify, started and ended, full chords, including bass layer, but it's not a standalone bass. I hope you understand. I know you do. Anyway, that's it. That's all of them. We just bang that right out. Let's full screen this bad Larry and take a look. I guess the first thing I want to do, we only had one song with one element. I think we only had one song with two elements. Let's go right back, compare it to Syro. We're just going to do a quick jump back and forth. Bang. Look at how much more green there is this time. Not only is there more green, there's a little bit more yellow. But wow. Way more green. And wait. There we go. Let's compare it to the very first Aphex Twin album. Drums pretty similar, kind of a similar amount of yellow, but way more green this time around. And everything else I would say is pretty even. Now, looking back, we remember GeoGaddy. If you missed that one, that was the king of the green, to be fair. Nothing. Oh, that's why. I'm very zoomed in. That's why we couldn't see our notes. GeoGaddy was king of the green. This one, in a way, you know what? I actually think this Rat-a-tat album is a pretty close comparison. It's like the drums and chords by default, and then maybe something else with it. Although I will say that this Aphex Twin album actually had three things more often even than the Rat-a-tat one did. Those were kind of later to develop. This, more and more, I would say this Fortet one is just kind of on its own in terms of just being drums and atmospherics. That's kind of a rare combo with other artists. It's kind of like either it's atmospheric or it has drums, like usually drums are the antithesis of ambient music, but not in this case. You know, Fortet really rocked it. John Hopkins too, but you know, as you see, kind of what I just said, atmospherics by itself most of the time. The ones that have drums, there's actually kind of a gap there. No atmospherics. Kind of take a look through anyway. The Mundoworld, kind of a similar amount of green, maybe on a percentage basis, but overall, much more drum department on the Aphex Twin album. Much less drums out of Ochre here. Square Pusher, this one, you know what? I'll say this one's a pretty close comparison, which is interesting too, because it's a very similar time period. So we got similar things going on. Yeah, like just bouncing back and forth. I think a little bit more yellow on this one, but if we do recall, a couple of these atmospherics, like they weren't fully atmospherics anyway. So I actually think Hard Normal Daddy might be the best comparison overall to the iCare because you do structure. A couple of the Mundoworld albums here, a lot more bass really in these, going all the way back to the 90s. The bass wasn't as bumping as it is nowadays. But yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoyed that. Definitely going to be more to dig into, more comparisons, more analyses. So, hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.